In the palm of a man's hand hides an old man. He could devour souls and perceive all things, so he was taken by the man to increase his strength, and he is the strongest hybrid human in the world. His name was D. At the end of the World War, the city was destroyed and torn apart, and the vampire clan was dying out, because there was a huge bounty for killing them, so there were bounty hunters who hunted vampires. But among the bounty hunters, D was a special one, because he was born a hybrid of vampire and human. He is unpopular with humans and vampires alike. He suffers from loneliness and endless isolation. One day wealthy employer put out a bounty notice to the world. He was looking for a strong bounty hunter, because his daughter Charlotte was taken by a vampire 3 days ago. His name is Meyer and he is very powerful. No one who had been sent to look for him had survived, and the wealthy businessman's employer had heard tales of D, but to get him to do it, he had to be paid a lot of money. Hearing the rich businessman's agreement, he took the deposit and set out on his mission. Employers in case things change, and hired a bounty squad. It wasn't long before D met up with the bounty squad. The female member of the bounty squad named Layla, fearing that D would get the bounty faster, so she chased after him on her motorbike. D galloped over the desert troll's back, through the no man's land of the dead, and finally, just before nightfall, to the sanctuary of the vampire nobility. This is where Meyer is hiding. D throws a stone at the energy shield. The energy shield was suddenly filled with eyes. Then a laser is fired at the stone thrown by D. D easily reaches the edge of the shield, looking for the entrance to the inside. Just as darkness was approaching, Layla arrives on her motorbike. She leapt up with her bazooka. At that moment a black wagon emerged from the energy shield. Layla sees this and pulls the trigger. The rocket did no damage to Meyer, and bounced all the attacks back. Layla was also hit in the left shoulder by the shrapnel that bounced back. Meyer drove the carriage into the darkness. D had already appeared on top of the carriage, threatened to kill you if you didn't give up Charlotte. But Meyer didn't panic, because he wanted to see how strong the legendary bounty hunter was. Just as D was about to cut Meyer on the shoulder, the girl in the carriage suddenly warned Meyer to be careful. When D's mind wandered, Meyer knocked him off the wagon. D looked into the darkness and thought, a simple, kind girl who cares about vampires. Turning back to the shelter to look for Warhorse, seeing Layla lying on the ground in a heap, he wanted to walk away. But when D heard Layla cry out for her mother in her unconsciousness, the kindness of his heart saved her. When Layla woke up and saw D beside her, she rushed to check her neck to see if he had bitten her. But D turned and left the area. D followed the tracks of the wagon to the barbarian's land. However, the other side accepted a commission to escort Meyer. At that moment, a man with a glowing light flew in the distance. He kills as much as he likes in barbarian territory. He is Grove of the bounty squad. Grove used this move at the cost of losing his life. The patriarch sent 3 expert guards in a carriage to leave the area first. D saw this and went after him. Grove blocked D and attacked, but he was cut in half by D. He pursued the carriage in the direction it had gone. By now Grove's soul was damaged and his body was reeling. D soon caught up with the carriage, but the carriage changed into a black cloth and wrapped D in it. Unable to see the road, D rushed off the cliff. At that moment, the black cloth transformed into an evil spirit and pounced on D. But D was in a hallucination. It turned out to be the magic of the man in black. That's when the bounty team caught up. The green-haired witch took the opportunity to hide under the car. She transformed into numerous thorns and attacked the car. The armored car then went out of control and flipped to the other side. The men in black were about to attack the bounty team, but the bounty team's flying arrows took him out. D woke up from the hallucination. The old man in the palm of his hand sucked all the black cloth into his mouth. As a half-blood, he could walk in the sunlight, but he can hurt over time, so he decided to go to town and buy a horse first. In the meantime, Meyer's carriage also stops in the town. At that moment Charlotte emerged from the carriage. Perhaps this is the last time she will bask in the sun. Charlotte sat alone by the creek for a long time in contemplation. She was soon discovered by D, who had arrived. Charlotte told D, "I love Lord Meyer. If you want to take me back, please kill me now." All this was heard by Layla, who hated vampires. Just as she was about to take Charlotte away by force, she was thrown into the water by the green-haired witch who appeared out of nowhere. D in pursuit into the thick woods. The green-haired witch merged with the trees. Suddenly D fell to his knees in pain. D had been in the sun for a long time and was hurt. At that moment, numerous spikes came to D. The weakened D had to hide. In order for the green-haired witch to reveal her true form, the tree was cut down by D. D seized the opportunity and cut off her head with a single slash. but the green-haired witch was not dead. Layla saw Dee on the ground. As she hesitated, the vine suddenly wrapped itself round her ankle. It was the green-haired witch who was still alive. Just as Layla was in danger, a flash of lightning split the green-haired witch into fiery coals. On the other side, several other members of the bounty team stopped the wagon and threatened them with a detonator. Kyle brings Charlotte out of the wagon. The werewolf used his X-ray vision to locate the explosives and prepared to attack, but Borgoff shot him in the waist and fell into the river. Just then, Meyer came out. The sun began to burn his skin. Charlotte broke free and ran to Meyer. Her heart ached at that moment. She would die for him. The werewolf that had fallen into the water suddenly appeared. Kyle died under the werewolf's claws. Borgoff presses the detonator and decides to blow them all up, but the explosives had already been thrown into the water by the werewolf. The werewolves wanted Meyer to reach the fabled city as soon as possible, so he stayed behind to stop Dee, but he was soon killed by Dee, and Meyer and Charlotte arrived in the City of Legends. The owner of this castle is Caroline. Legend has it that she killed countless people to stay young. She was finally killed by the king of vampires and sealed under his sword. At this point, Caroline entertained the two and told them that if they board the airship in the castle, and they would arrive in the legendary night capital, a life of isolation and tranquility. They are now hopeful for the future. By this time, Dee had broken into the castle. Meyer decided to take care of him herself. Just as Meyer is about to attack, suddenly found Charlotte in Dee's arms, and at that moment, he was cut in half by a stone statue. Strange things happen one by one. By now the real Dee had broken into the castle. There was the dead mother in front of him. Dee didn't hesitate. He slashed at the phantom in front of him. The illusion that Caroline had created was broken. At that moment Charlotte heard his call in the mirror. Slowly, she fell into Meyer's arms, but she was bitten in the neck. Dee found Caroline's hiding place, but is trapped by Caroline's powerful aura and cannot break free. If Caroline really comes back to life, it would be a disaster for all mankind. Dee suddenly unleashes his hidden power. Turns out he's the son of the Vampire King. Then he stabbed Caroline in the body. The soul is absorbed by the face in his hand. Charlotte's blood flowed into the coffin on the stone steps. The sword stuck in the corpse unsealed itself. A woman, covered in blood and red, emerges. This is all part of Caroline's scheme. She wants to use Charlotte to revive her own self. Angry Meyer cut her in half. Meyer holds Charlotte tightly in his arms. Layla gripped the gun in her hand and pointed it at the two of them, but she hesitated for a long time and did not shoot. Perhaps it was the love between them that really moved her. Dee, however, stopped Meyer. The battle between the two men was about to begin, but Dee doesn't want to kill him. He just took Charlotte's ring. He plans to hand it over to his employer. Meyer took Charlotte in his arms and boarded the airship to the night capital. Layla wished them well in silence. Many years later, a funeral. A little girl who looked like Layla spotted Dee in the distance. She turns out to be Layla's granddaughter. She had heard stories about Dee. She admired him and wanted him to come to her home. Dee turned her down and left, because he already knew that Layla was happy. He became the cold and lonely Dee the vampire hunter again.